require me to stop doing what I could already do as William, but that I could continue on with it as Paul McCartney, or as any other personas. Weeks before, I'd agreed to write the feature film score for The Family Way. I meant to be finished with it by then, but had forgotten all about it. I called Brian and offered to pay him a fee if he could arrange to have that work transferred from me as William to me as Paul. He objected, since everyone knew that Paul could neither read nor write sheet music. Nevertheless, when I said I would pay him to book it for me, he agreed to set it up. Each scene would have its own unique emotion, captured with a musical mood that led to another, as I did later on some albums. The challenge was to have each part independently interesting, yet connected to the whole. Going back and forth between the piano and the screenplay, I wrote the score's first draft by hand in one day. I added in each instrument later. Paul McCartney is credited with writing that entire movie score even though he could not read sheet music. I, however, having spent years as a first-class session musician, was not only able to read music, but could also write scores well. I'd entertained countless live audiences, filling in for various orchestras in London, and have done an ample amount of studio work requiring sheet music. Some bands that I sat in for in recording sessions told me the key they were in or what chords they were playing. In some cases, I would improvise with utterly nothing at all to read. However, the more serious music, I mean all of the classical music, required me to read sheet music. Paul could not read or write sheet music. To downplay that stark evidence of a personal challenge, we said that Paul had already agreed to write the score months before. For a few minutes that evening when Brian came by, I showed him my rapid progress. I expected to impress him with the quality and quantity of my work, but alarmed him with the clear contrast of Paul's lack of formal music training. With dismay, he said, "You are a better Paul than Paul ever was." Making matters more alarming to Brian, he learned that Sherry Ann had a birthday party that Paul should have shown up for, or excused himself from the day before. Paul's absence was conspicuous. Sherry Ann was a woman whom Paul had met on one of Jane Asher's movie sets. Our gathering in my home Sunday had convinced George to go to India, his centre of mysticism. The religion of his youth had failed him. He wanted much more. Paul's premonitions, followed by me entering the scene and taking Paul's place as he foretold, demonstrated that this vast spiritual force was at play, which we needed to understand. George, wanting to tap the cosmic network of enlightenment, hoped that studying yoga and Indian philosophy would help. He hoped to retreat from the world unnoticed. George quietly checked in at the Taj Mahal Hotel in Bombay under the pseudonym Sam after the reporter, Wells, but was recognized in the lobby before he could reach his room. Brian was told all about this secondhand and related it to me on our Tuesday visit. Enough of a fan-frenzied disturbance ensued that George could see his only chance for peace was for him to hold a press conference, satisfying curiosities by answering all the questions, and then to escape to another hotel. They held the press conference at the Taj Mahal Hotel hours before my visit with Brian. He was miserable thinking of what George might say that could accidentally tip off the public about Paul. I asked him if George were careless when he spoke in public. Leaning forward, as if to keep others from hearing, even though we were all alone in my home, he said, "You've got to be careful about George. He just says what's on his mind. He's too honest." Well, as it turned out, George did okay. He told the press that he was there to learn their old culture and philosophy and to learn to play the sitar, which was all true and completely safe enough information. Yet, he wisely did not explain how the year of Paul's prophecies groomed him for it. Before leaving India, George visited, among other locations, the Digambara Jain temple for the yogis of Kolkata in West Bengal. On one stone wall, he saw a carved swastika above an open palm. In Hindu divinity, the swastika, seen throughout India, symbolizes Brahma, their god of creation. The hand added to the meaning. George was told that the hand is a symbol of blessing, but also suggests a continual need for coexistence and Sarva Dharma Sambhava. In palmistry, The hand or palm is a symbol of mystic determinism. In Paulism, the palm is also a mystical coexistence with the deceased Paul M. Shiva is a four-armed god of destruction, whom George learned about while there. Hindis say Shiva had a child made from her dirt. She asked the boy to keep guard while she left to go to bathe. However, in cleaning herself, she became unrecognizable to the boy, who blocked her return passage. Shiva took vengeance on the young boy by chopping off his head. When Parvati pled for the boy's life, Shiva affixed an elephant's head to the boy's torso, thus creating Ganesha, the mystical elephant-headed god. Centered on the bottom of the Sgt. Pepper's cover, you'll see a statue of Shiva, the Destroyer, with two hands pointed down to Paul's grave, one pointing to the wax Paul and one to me, to whom Paul's head is affixed figuratively, for Paul to continue through me. Beheading the mystical boy, who bestows that new head on another, confers the rule of that head that I wear like a crown to the replacement. Going with Shaivism for this imagery, we credit Shiva, the Destroyer, with taking Paul's life and with enhancing me, magically giving me Paul's head. It transforms me into a mystery idol. During his trip to India, George learned legends, philosophies, and symbols that I applied to Paulism, mixing that Hindi branch of spirituality with the mysticism that I participated in throughout my entire life. Although religions don't attract me, I have always respected spirituality.